Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the NAL, but this time we're going to have a little preview show, and I want to welcome myself in the desk. I'm your host, Velly, but here are my boys, Jesse and Jacob. And Jesse, starting with you, man, how excited are you for Stage 2 to start?
Oh, Velly, I'm so excited. I mean, it feels like it's been such a long off season. I haven't seen you in forever. I almost forgot what you look like, but starting to come back to me now. Stage 2, obviously, right around the corner, and man, I'm ready for it.
Jacob, we have land. Stage 1 was crazy. What are you expecting for Stage 2?
Well, I will tell you what I wasn't expecting was for Jesse to sound like he's coming from an echo chamber the size of an airplane hangar. But regardless, Stage 1 did a lot of things that I hope mean we see a lot of the same going into Stage 2. You said it yourself, land's coming back, majors are back on the menu, and so are earning even more SI points for 2022. It's about to get on.
You said you want to see more of the same. Let's take a look at the standings, and I'm going to be right there along with you. Stage 1 was something that we have never expected. Take a look at the top of the leaderboards. Oxygen and Sonics are number 1 and number 2, two teams that made drastic team changes, and they shocked the entire scene. But Jesse, coming to you, what is the biggest shock looking at this graphic?
I mean, for me, I just feel like the biggest shock is how many staple top 4 teams didn't manage to make it up there. I mean, TSM, Dark Zero Space Station, practically nobody had all 3 of these squads not making it to the top 4 going into Stage 1. So it was really crazy heading into this new format with all the teams making some changes and such. It was crazy how different the standings came out compared to like the last couple of stages. The last year of Siege has been really static in North America, but it seemed like last stage for the first time we finally saw some shakeups, and it was really surprising.
Jacob, just make it quick because we're going to jump into it. The people that are watching this, they don't know exactly what we're going to talk about now, but from what we know, which team do you think is going to make the biggest splash?
I mean, I certainly hope it would be Space Station. They finally found something to help plug the massive hole that they had in Stage 1, and it's one of the best players from that stage overall. I think SSG is about to shoot up this list, and TSM is probably going to go right up there with them.
I mean, hey, only a matter of time until we find out, but let's talk about the money. Now, it's going to be more than just bragging rights on the line. First place, they're going to walk away with some good money, $15,000. But Jesse, the points on the right side, I mean, they mean a lot more in the end, don't they?
Yeah, these SI points are huge, just like every stage, but the big difference is, so we have for the first stage, right, SI points have been given out. Now we're in the second stage, there will be a third stage. So in this middle stage, we're gonna start to see teams get solidified for the 6 Invitational. And if teams do really poorly twice in a row, they might even get eliminated from 6 Invitational contention, right? To get invited by the points. Some teams are in a little bit of a rocky spot, and so you really do have to focus on those like last stage standings to know sort of where teams are at in terms of their points. And those teams that didn't place too well, maybe they didn't quite get top 4, it's really do or die time for them to make a splash this stage and really get as many points as they can.
It's time to show everybody what they're made of here in Stage 2. Now, Jacob, I have a question for you, man. So, thinking about Stage 1, before Stage 1 even started, if I told you Sonics and Oxygen, they're going to dominate the leaderboards, especially Oxygen with 2 rookies to the Pro League, what would you have thought?
I would have thought you were insane, just because with 2 new changes for Oxygen and 2 guys who've never played at a Pro League level before, that's pretty astonishing to come out first place overall when we've known them for being the perpetual 4th place team, 3rd place team for all of last year. And they did such a good job of transforming the way that they play with these 2 new guys on their team, and we saw even more of a culmination of that success at the 6th Invitational only a couple of weeks ago. That success continued. The fact that 2 rookies came in to their first international LAN environment and stood up like that is a phenomenal indicator for what they can do for this stage and for the rest of this season overall. And it just goes to show you how OXG scouted these guys well, knew what they were getting into, and found a way to adapt both of those players into the structure they've been developing for so long.
Yes, now there's been a lot of other roster changes, and the 2 guys that we spoke about in detail and length right there, they were new to the league. Now, the theme of this whole show is to talk about the team changes that have happened. We're going to get you updated and acclimated with everything that's been happening with these rosters. And first things first, coming off the bench, Jacob, this one's going to go to you. We see some familiar faces, and I hope that they can keep up with the young guys this time around.
So just to give you an idea of what you're looking at here, you might be wondering why you're looking at 2 coaches on the screen. That's because both of them are actually coming into stage 2 as players. Pojoman will be stepping in for Geometrics, who unfortunately due to some visa problems will not be able to play for stage 2. And BC and Mint for Dark Zero have shifted roles. Mint is now a coach, BC is now a player, and both of the guys you see on your screen right now have so much longevity and experience between the 2 of them. It's going to be really interesting to see how they come back into the fold as players and not behind the screens.
You know what's actually funny? I'm sorry, I just want to throw this out there before you take it. Under BC, where it says he's played at 11 international LAN events, but he won 0, hopefully Dark Zero can change this around, right, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're hoping for. The production did him a little dirty with that, but hey, nobody's denying the skill that BC brings, right? He's played for so long, Pojoman as well. I mean, Pojo's played every single season of Pro League. BC has played in 9. You know, he was managing for coach for one of them. They've both been coaches since the very start of the North American League. And again, I mean, the legacy these players bring is astounding. Pojoman, you know, with that SMG 11, the support player that he is, incredible in BC. I mean, he defined being a grenade player in North America. So it's going to be great to see these guys back at the server.
I'm going to let you know now, Jesse and Jacob, I can't wait to see Pojoman's clutch and for him to type in the infamous LOL in the chat.
Yes,
we all
please
know what Pojoman is capable of, and him being pretty much the brains behind TSM, I think they're going to be well. Along with Dark Zero and BC, I wish them the best of luck. But this next graphic that we're about to show, these are 2 familiar faces coming from 2 ultimately different places. One of them had the team change of his life. He landed on something nice. And the other one, Jacob, tell me a little bit about the rookie DP Fire.
Yeah, I like this comparison, but we'll start with DP Fire when you see it in a second. It's a new player from Challenger League, of which in this stage overall there are 3. 2 of them came from a team called Livid, and DP Fire came from a team known as Orgless, with a lot of other potential tier 1 players on it at some point down the road who've been grinding in Challenger League. And that's exactly what DP Fire's been doing for a while. He's one of those players who was an underage prodigy who's played with some guys who you might recognize like Penguin and Kool-Aid from Parabellum, who were just recently at SI, and he's now finding his own way into the pro circuit from, you know, those underage teams and from Challenger League. We've been waiting for him to get to this level for a really long time. He just turned 18 this year, and he's a very aggressive entry player who had one of the best stat lines in the top 10 of all of those players in Challenger League for stage 1. I'm excited to see what he can do now that he's finally here.
Yeah, we've matched him up with somebody who should need no introduction. I mean, Hot and Cold did so well last stage for Mirage, and he's one of the best players, probably the hottest roster move that we had over the offseason, going to Space Station, taking that, thank you, roll over from Luke, who was subbing in for Space Station throughout stage 1. I mean, he played so well last stage and did so much for Mirage. I think a lot of people kind of expected him to go somewhere. Where exactly that would have been, a lot of people weren't necessarily sure, but just the way that he was able to move from like a hard stuck support player on Dark Zero for so many years, goes on to Mirage, shows he can frag, and now he's going to move over to Space Station to, you know, whatever role they need him to fill. I'm sure he'll be there to fill that role. So Hot and Cold, the biggest roster of the offseason for sure, going from Mirage to Space Station. He is in good hands with the boys in yellow.
Good hands. I think that's the pickup of the year, Jesse. I mean, let's be completely honest. Hot and Cold, when Dark Zero won their major, Hot and Cold was the MVP, I believe. And not only that, but he continued on a tear after that, going to Mirage, playing entry, and being the best player in the lobby whenever he wanted to be. But DP Fire, I have a question. So it says he's an aggressive entry player. Would you compare him to the likes of, let's say, an NJR or an Iconic?
He did. He didn't team with those players, though he definitely teamed around those players.
I mean, the explosiveness, though.
Yes, 100%. And he has a lot of like the same qualities, I think, which is a big reason for why DG probably want to pick him up. There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle for Disrupt that I think we kind of questioned how they were going to work together. And we saw how Mark the Shark played for Disrupt last stage. I dare say that DP Fire should be able to do Mark's job, if not a better job than the way that Mark the Shark played last stage, which you wouldn't think they'd be making a roster change after placing top 4, but this is the future, Velly. Every new player from those underage leagues is finally making it to the big leagues, and I think he can do a phenomenal job.
Jesse, one more question before we move on.
Yeah.
Disrupt Gaming going to a very young roster. Do you think that inserting that type of new blood in a lineup, or just in a league in general, is going to turn heads in the NAL?
I think it's a bit of a risk, right? Because you definitely want to be bringing new blood into your team, especially if you're not a team that already has a bunch of like rookies, right? But I think there is something to say about making a team too young. It is possible to kind of lose control. You know, if the kids run the madhouse, then you can kind of fall into trouble. But the big thing for DG, I think, is a lot of their young players are very mature mentally, and so I don't think it's going to be too big of a problem for them. I think they're really going to fit in well with the other guys on Disrupt, and you know, there's so much experience in the likes of Retro and such, so they should have it figured out. And Easily is the coach as well.
Just about to bring that up.
Yes, sir.
He brings so much experience. So I think they'll be okay, but yeah, maybe something that they have to worry about in terms of just like the mental state going forward and how these rookies will really adapt into the lineup.
Okay, now Jesse, I'm going to come back to you for this one. Now you guys called them the comeback kids. We've seen these faces all around. And Bio is going to be back in the NAL once again. You can't get rid of him, but also this is who I'm excited to see. It's going to be Quartz, and he comes from Canada, right?
Oh, he sure does, Velly. I mean, Quartz, one of our favorite Canadian boys, played in the Canadian division just last year. Obviously, he played with Mirage. I think the plan was to kind of move him into the new roster as well this year, but he had some visa troubles, was stuck in Canada. Now with Hot and Cold leaving the lineup, making some room, and the visa situation getting sorted out, things kind of worked out for Mirage, and they get to bring Quartz back onto the lineup. He has been a fantastic player for Mirage throughout their history, right? And I think he's going to fit in really well. We've got here, he plays similar roles to Hot and Cold. Those are sort of those sledge roles that you really expect people to play. Not necessarily Hot and Cold's old roles, but where he fit in Mirage is definitely going to be where Quartz's strengths are as well. So Quartz is going to slide right on in there. And you know, when we saw him playing in Canada, he was a huge player.
Oh, yeah.
He was the top-rated player for Mirage all throughout Stage 2. I mean, he really was the guy that was turning heads for Mirage and making the Canadians look like a real threat on the global scene. Obviously, Mirage didn't end last year too hot, but I still really think Mirage was a huge, Quartz was a huge benefit to Mirage last year, and having him back in the lineup is going to do wonders for them.
Yeah, the opposite side of the table is somebody who we've seen in the NAL, the US division, for a considerable amount of time, but he did not play in stage 1 either, similar to Quartz. Biologic played for OXG for both of those stages, but he departed the team at the end of that season, and now he's coming into a Beast Coast team that, because they placed 8th last stage, definitely needed somebody with more of a veteran presence. I remember Fozo was doing a Reddit Q&A, and the idea behind bringing in somebody like Bio is he's got LAN experience. There's so much that you can do with a player with that amount of professional tenure, and hopefully can maybe help to ground Beast Coast a little bit more and give them a more of like a solid rock to work from, more or less. And he is a bona fide IGL. I remember talking to some people saying this is probably one of the better IGLs that we've seen in the North American League, just in the way that he plays. He's done it for TSM, for OXG. There was even a short stint for where he played with some Evil Geniuses players back in USN way back in the day. And I do think that that kind of trend can continue. If Beast Coast was looking for somebody with solid leadership, look no further than Biologic.
You know what, Jacob? I'm gonna leave this one to you. So far, we've been talking about rookies coming in and whatnot, but the fact that Beast Coast brought in an IGL and Bio, do you think that this could significantly help out their team? I mean, Beast Coast, they were a good team. We saw them with an upset earlier in the season, but it seemed like the direction that they were headed to wasn't exactly where they wanted to go. Do you think Beast Coast might turn heads this season?
I'd like to think so, because everyone on that team calls at some point. Like, everyone's offering up like their own piece of the puzzle, or like an observation that they notice to see if they can't try to beat their opponents. But if you bring somebody like Biologic in, you can't really deny the experience that he has and how he can help to transform a roster of people who very clearly have the skills. Anthony Sippin, Rudy Fozo all have different things that they bring to this pie for Beast Coast, and it might just be a matter of one more player coming in to help like complete the formula in a sense. And plus, it's Bio. Everyone knows who he is. Even if, you know, there were some people who were memeing on him at the back end of last season, this is his chance also to help turn things around, not just for Beast Coast, but for himself.
We saw flashes of greatness coming in from him when he did join the Oxygen at first. Won't forget about that. But for this next one, I'm going to need a learning lesson. I'm going to call him the new kids. And Jesse. When I first heard about this, I heard that 2 players named Razor, and at first I thought his name was Panda, was coming to the league. But both of these players are definitely serious from what I've heard.
Yeah, Razor and Pambazoo. So both of these players played in Challenger League last stage, and they played on the same team. They played on Livid Gaming, which is why we called them the EXTEAMMATES. They were teaming together just last stage throughout stage 1. And they really like started to heat up towards the second half of Challenger League. Livid as a whole, they started Challenger League kind of weak. They went 0-3. They really weren't having a good time. But then something clicked on the roster, a couple moves got made, and Pambazoo Razor really led the charge to bring Livid back out of the depths and very narrowly didn't quite make it into playoffs. But I think everybody was aware of how good Livid was looking towards the end of the stage, and certainly EXTEAMMATES and Dark Zero caught wind of that and decided to pick these two young players up. Pambazoo especially, I think, has been sort of that big star for the team, one of the top 10 players rating-wise throughout all of Challenger League Stage 1, just turned 18 this year, a ranked star, a YouTuber, now turned pro player. He is one that I think a lot of people are going to be excited to watch. A lot of people are going to rally behind for Dark Zero, and he's really somebody that I think can like shift the whole league in a way that very few players have done before. So my eyes are glued to this kid.
Jacob, before you take this, now learning about Pambazoo, wow. I mean, what, rank star YouTuber going pro player? We've heard about this before, man.
We have. There's a little somebody on TSM who is kind of following a similar path. Pambazoo, I want to say, he's got a pretty considerable YouTube following, and it all came from, playing a lot of ranked and competitive style games, but he wasn't able to play anything from a Challenger League perspective up until he turned 18, which is why it's impressive that Dark Zero have decided to use him after only one stage in CL and decided to bring him right up to the big leagues. It's an interesting choice, and it's the first time that Dark Zero have grabbed somebody right from the CL system and brought him up to this level. So I'm looking for Dark Zero to help develop him in some way. Yeah, it should be pretty insane. On the flip side of that coin, here's Razor, his ex-teammate, and I hate the fact that these two are playing against one another because that Livid team was starting to look pretty good. Razor's played in Challenger League, I think, every single split or season from last year, season 11, and then the US season back when it was split between the US and Canada. He's also the first player to be recruited through FPL. More specifically, he didn't have crazy stats like Pambazoo did, but he did rub shoulders with a lot of people that he would eventually become teammates with. Guys like Thomas who play a lot of FPL. That's what they used it for. It was a recruitment space. Razor took FPL seriously to the point that XSET think that he is the answer to their problems, their replacement for Butters, and I'm curious to see if it's going to work out for them. Razor's been working for this for a long time, but is he really the thing that's going to get XSET out of their 9th place hole?
This is absolutely insane. All of these team changes, all of these first timers here, and the Pro League for Rainbow Six Siege, no one knows what's going to happen, but let's talk about the top 4 teams that kind of walked down memory lane a little bit when it came to Stage 1. Now, Jesse, Oxygen on top, they were fantastic, but I want to get your thoughts about the Sonics, okay? Sonics have been incredible. Basically, Super picked up a lot of those players from E United, and they turned out to be a phenomenal squad. I mean, the explosiveness and what we see from Grixer isn't what anybody expected in the scene.
Yeah, I mean, Sonics really did surprise a ton of people coming out into Stage 1, and I think just because they took such players that didn't do well at all throughout, last year, they managed to get very close to the bottom, if not dead last in many stages. And the Sonics, Super and Joe and the rest of the support staff over on the Sonics really did shape these players into being fantastic superstars. And you've got to give a lot of credit to the players on Sonics, that carried over from the old roster to the new, to see the potential in these guys and really, realize, okay, there's a lot of talent here. It just needs to be tapped. It just needs to be refined. And so you've got to give them a ton of credit for performing so well. The one thing I'll say about Sonics is we haven't really seen them play any best of 3s recently. Like, they didn't get to go to SI. So all we've really seen them do is play some best of 1s. They played those best of 1s really well, but I'm still a little bit, unsure about their map pool, seeing how they'll do in those longer series. That's something I'm hoping we get to see in a little while here once we move towards that major.
That's legitimate. Jacob, this is weird, man. Top 4 is in TSM, Dark Zero, Space Station Gaming.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts about all of this?
I mean, good. Like, the fact that there was the same 4 teams over and over again in the top 4 last year, from a viewership point of view, if nothing else, that gets stale really, really quickly. And I like the fact that there are other players who can show their stuff and have, either a crazy win streak or players popping off where you least expect it. Stage 1 had enough of those differences that made us all kind of recoil for a second and go, wait, there are other possibilities in the North American League. Anything can happen in a system like this. It wasn't TSM. It wasn't Dark Zero. You're right. It was a couple of other teams who have been not nearly as successful, not nearly as notable, like the Sonics, and the fact that they got a breakthrough so significant so quickly when they were expecting it to take months before they ever got to a top 2 position is ridiculous. And I'm really happy that the NAL was an environment where they could prove everyone wrong and thrive in their own way.
Yes, now talk about being in your environment. Jesse, production put together this segment for you, and it's an analyst projection segment that you're basically going to tell us about what you expect that's going to happen this season. Now, you've done your homework, you know these teams, you know all about these players. What are you expecting to happen here in stage 2?
So stage 2 is really crazy with all the roster moves we got. I think the clearest line you can draw is between top 3 and bottom 6. In my mind, what I'm predicting going into stage 2 is that we're gonna see 3 teams exceed the rest of them, those being TSM, Sonics, and Oxygen. Now I want to make this clear, I don't know what order those top 3 are going to be in. I think all 3 of those teams have had really great bright spots recently. TSM doing so well at the 6th Invitational, Oxygen doing well both at the Invitational and during the first stage, but losing a direct best of 3 against TSM makes me question them a little bit more. And then the Sonics, who did really well in sort of the regular season, but didn't get a chance at the 6th Invitational. Those top 3 seem to me like the clear favorites, but where they'll finish in front of them, I'm really not sure. And then the bottom 6, I think you can kind of categorize these teams, right? So on the left here, I put the old faithful teams, right? The boomers, if you will, the teams that you expected to be at the top, but they really didn't perform the same way that you wanted them to in stage 1. Then you've got sort of the up-and-comers, right? Mirage and Disrupt. These are the teams that I think a lot of people were underestimating, myself included, going into stage 1. They really shocked a lot of people, both of them making top 4. And then you've got sort of the Challenger League team squads, right? Both Beast Coast and EXTEAMMATES. And maybe you think these teams don't really have as good of a chance at, making that top 4, getting a little bit higher in that bottom 6. But with all the roster moves made by these bottom 4 teams, and TSM as well, which we talked about, I really think that anything can happen between the bottom 6. Obviously, also jumping up in that top 3, it's going to be possible. It just really depends on who's performing to these best of ones, who's really able to catch out their opponents, and we're in for a wild season, Velly.
Jacob, talk about a wild season. Are you with me on this one? Is Jesse kind of wild for not putting the new edition of Hot and Cold on Space Station Gaming in that top 3? What do you think about that, man?
I do think Space Station will do way better than they did in stage 1, but I actually do kind of agree with Jesse. For SSG, they're going to be going through some role swaps. They need to figure out how they want to orient themselves after introducing somebody like Hot and Cold, who proved that he is more than just a support player. So where are you going to put him? Is Fultz still going to be IGLing? How is, are Fultz and Rampy still going to entry duo? What do you do with Bosco and Thinking Nate, right? If you're able to get those questions answered very early on, then yeah, maybe they punch their way into that top 3, but it's a lot of development for some of these teams that aren't in that top 3 position. The guys who didn't make roster changes, as far as I'm concerned, are sitting, far prettier than the bottom 6 that Jesse mentioned, but they're all going through some sort of adjustment, whether it's coaching staff, whether it's players, whether it's 2 players. They're all doing something a little bit different. So it's kind of like, I don't want to say that you have time to waste in stage 2. If anything, you had time to waste maybe in stage 1 as you were like acclimating to a LAN environment and kind of getting used to how the NAL works now. But in stage 2, there's more pressure on your shoulders, not just because you should have already had more things figured out at this point, but majors are coming back and you need to be in tip-top shape if you want to go to somewhere in the world and go start competing for more of those 6 invitational points. I'd say stage 2, it's not imperative yet, but time's kind of getting critical and you need to have all of these problems ironed out fast. Space Station have a lot of work to do. Mirage has a lot of work to do. Dark Zero has a lot of work to do, but I think they can get it done. You just need to do it quickly.
A lot of emphasis on the a lot right there, and I stand with you on that one. But you know what? Ever since we've all been working together, we've had a lot of fun on this desk, right? We've had all types of competition and bets when it came to predictions, and I believe I was on top of both of y'all. But you two have had something fun. I think it was Jesse that had to wear the shirt of your face, Jacob. But this time in stage 2, do you have something cooked up behind the scenes?
Yeah. So I've done a little bit of work. I've made some calls, some emails, and I've tried to figure out where my laptop is.
I'm scared.
I don't know where it is. I keep hoping it'll show up at my doorstep one day, but I just have no idea. I have it under good authority that FACEIT and Ubisoft and Predator will finally allow me to have my laptop but only if I get a majority of predictions correct over Jesse for stage
You're
1.
never getting a laptop, man.
I mean, hey,
Oh,
the
it's
reason
done.
he wore the shirt was because I had more predictions
No.
right. The reason I'm getting a victory cake, which you still owe me, by the way, Jesse, is because he picked XSET to win in a random game at the back end of last stage, and he lost it. I'm goated at predictions when push comes to shove, when the pressure is on. But now it's this one matters a lot more to me. I'm not gonna lie.
That's true.
This is more personal. So I'm not gonna mess this one. I'm not gonna troll. I promise I won't troll.
Jesse, he has no chance at all, does he?
I promise I won't troll.
Listen, Jacob's got something to play for. He wants his laptop. I get that, but I've got something to play for too, right? I have my laptop, my Predator Helios 700 gaming laptop. I love it. But Spawny doesn't have a laptop yet, so I'm playing for Spawny to get herself a laptop. She's gonna be helping me with predictions all throughout the stage. We're gonna win. We're gonna get Spawny a laptop and take it away from Jacob.
Jacob, if Spawny, the analyst cat, gets a laptop before you're off the desk, man. You're just gone.
I love Spawny. Don't get me wrong. I think Spawny followed me on Twitter before I followed her, but the fact that a cat might get a laptop before me, unacceptable.
At the end of the day,
I will not stand for this.
Yeah, at the end of the day, no one knows what to expect here in the NAL, but you know what? The season starts soon, and actually, let's go ahead and take a look at the schedule for tomorrow's matches. I'm so excited. So the first matchup of the day, okay, I think this one is going to be a banger. Disrupt Gaming versus TSM, but Jacob, which one of these are you looking forward to, man?
So DG and TSM is a rematch of their last game played in stage 1, where DG beat TSM and knocked them out of the top 4. The storyline potential there is probably the most exciting that I can think of, unless you look right below them at Sonics and SSG. That's the second place team with the MVP Grixer on their lineup against SSG, and Hot and Cold was number 2 right behind Grixer, and he's got 4 world champions on his team to finally back him up. That to me is absolutely match of the day for tomorrow.
One thing I'd like to point out before I toss it to you, Jesse, for your thoughts. The old Oxygen IGL Bio on Beast Coast, he's going to be playing against his former team as well. So hey, there's a lot of personal battles that are happening right now. You know, you mentioned Disrupt against TSM, and now we're looking at Bio versus his old team. Jesse, what do you like here?
My favorite thing about this first day is you guys mentioned all the games that you were looking at, and none of you mentioned the one game I've been most focused on for this first play day, Mirage versus Dark Zero. I think that's going to be so fun to see all of these new players finally getting to show their stuff. You know, Quartz from Mirage, Dark Zero being able to bring in BC for the second time, Pamba as well being able to play on that roster for the first time coming in, and that one just seems like the most even matchup too in my mind. Like, both of these teams are so up in the air. I have no idea what's going to happen. And Mirage Dark Zero, I mean, last time they played in stage 1, it was really, really close. So I'm excited for that matchup. That's my match of the day.
You know why he's really excited, Jacob? Because there's a Canadian on Mirage now, Quartz, that Jesse really likes.
That's true.
Come on.
I remember his little fanboy self when Altiora won SI quals, and he had the flag draped around him and everything, and he's all super excited. I mean, I'm sure, dude, I was also happy when Parabellum beat G2, but the fact that Quartz is coming back to Mirage is not yet an indicator that they'll do well. You could be right. I want to see him play first. I just want the NAL to come back so we can have all of our questions finally answered after 3 months of waiting.
Jesse, now this is the end of our show. You know, the NAL starts soon. You excited, man? Are you hyped?
Velly, there's so much that's going to be going on this stage. Like, we've got new players coming in. We've got Major on the line. We've got the same amount of money and points all to be given out as well, which is always going to be important. We just finished with the 6th Invitational, which is the biggest event of the year, and we're already looking ahead to the next one. There's so much to look forward to this stage, Velly, and stage 2 is really where we get the meat of the game. So I'm so pumped, Velly. This is going to be great.
Jacob, listen, we had a talent announcement, and you still have your selfie picture. You don't have a LAN picture yet.
I don't know why they used that.
You don't have a LAN picture. You don't have a laptop, but you know what? You do have a spot on this desk for NAL stage 2.
I'll take it. That's fine.
How are you feeling about everything starting back up again?
I'm feeling good. Here's the thing. Stage 1 can only answer so many questions that we might have. And stage 2 is where we're seeing a lot of these teams need to show that they can adapt quickly. The stakes are different. You played for an increased amount of SI points and prize money if you got top 4 in stage 1. This time, you're going to a major if you make top 4, which means you're going somewhere that isn't Las Vegas to go and compete for another opportunity to make it to SI and get an even bigger portion of a prize pool. Lands are coming back. That's the most exciting part, and the teams know it. They want something that is, out of the box. We've been spending 16 months without international lands for such a long time. I think the motivation and the spark for every team will only be increased exponentially going into stage 2. So it should be even more fire than what we saw from stage 1.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm crazy hype right now. But for those of you at home, the beautiful viewers out there, listen. The NAL, we've been through some things. We've gone through the lockdown. We brought the LAN League back. The NAL has been nothing but a blast so far. The trash talk, the storylines, just the camaraderie between the players and everyone else out there. This stage is going to be special, and I can't wait for it to start. So me, Jesse, and Jacob, we're going to be so happy to join you on this desk as we break down some of the top action in all of Rainbow Six Siege. So with that being said, thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you when the NAL starts.